So here we have a 3 by 3 matrix, and we need to find out what's the determinant for this matrix. So wherever you need to you don't want to memorize all those like formulas that A times B times C, and you try to find a strategy to find out a determinant that you can understand but not memorize. You start with the instruction I'm going to present in this video. So you always select with a line. So let's always choose the first line of the matrix. So we will choose this first line, and then on this first line, and we see those three numbers 3, 1, 1. What we are going to do is that we are going to work on those three numbers one by one. So we will work on the first number, that's 3, on the first line and first row. So if you cross out the first line and the first row that the number is located on, and you will get a smaller matrix. That's a 2 by 2 matrix. That's 5, 2, 4, 1. So what you do is that you find out what's the determinant of this smaller matrix. And for this smaller matrix, you know how to find out the determinant. It's 5 times 1 minus 2 times 3. That is negative 3. And therefore, for the smaller matrix that you find out by crossing out a line and a column that 3 is set on, the determinant is negative 3. And the next thing is that you do with the second number, that's the 1 on the first line and the second column. And therefore, if you cross out the first line and the second column, you get the smaller matrix of 2 by 2 matrix of 4 numbers. So on the first line, you have 2 and 2. And on the second line, you have 4 and 1. And therefore, you know how to find out the determinant of this smaller 2 by 2 matrix. That's 2 times 1 minus 2 times 4. That gives you negative 6. Similarly, you do the same thing for the last number on the first row, that's 1. So you cross out the first row and the third column, and you get another smaller matrix, that's 2, 5, 4, 4. And now you find out determinants of this smaller matrix is 2 times 4 minus 4 times 5, that's negative 12. So let's do a summary of what we have been doing up to this moment. Is that we start on this line, or we focus on this line, and we focus on those numbers 1 by 1, 3, 1, 1. And what we do is that, when we focus on 3, we cross out the row that the 3 is set on, and the column, that's the first column that 3 is sitting on, and then we find out the determinants of that smaller matrix. So those are the determinants of those 3 smaller matrices that we have found out: negative 3, negative 6, and negative 12. So next thing we do is that we focus on this pair of numbers. So if we cross out the first line and first column that 3 is sitting on, and then we get a smaller matrix of 5, 2, 4, 1, and then determinant of that smaller matrix is negative 3. So we do the multiplication of this number by the the determinant of the smaller matrix, and additionally we times 1. So we do the multiplication of those two pair of numbers, and then we times 1. And then next thing we do is that we focus on the second pair of numbers. So this is two numbers. One is we focus on the number on the first line and the second column. So when we cross out the first line and second column, the determinant of that smaller matrix is negative 6. So we take 1 times negative 6, and then here we times negative 1. And then for the last pair of numbers, we do the similar thing. We take 1 times negative 12, and we times 1 again. And here, for the third number, we we did for the multiplication, that's 1, -1, and 1. So, the sign shift. You always start with a +1 and then -1 and +1 and -1. So if you have, more than 3 dimensions, if you have 5 by 5 or 6 by 6 matrices and you want to find out determinants, you take 1, -1, 1, -1, and 1, -1. Those are the patterns. So here, back to this example, we have 3 by 3 matrix, and those are the 3 pair of multiplications we found out, and we add those up. And then this is a determinant of this 3 by 3 matrix, that's -15.